Okay, welcome back, folks. We are now going to take up under our oversight and accountability section in last year's Act 163. There were some required reports that Representative McGuire spoke to us about in our sorry, I didn't know what that was. In our when we were looking at reports and so Representative McGuire, I've asked him to give us a little bit of an update, just in general, about what is happening for the project that he is working on, because while we're all contemplating things, Representative McGuire is actually on the ground doing something.
Yeah.
So if you would share with us what you are working on with regard to shelter expansion in and we probably actually should probably have that up under the homelessness awareness day part, but so I just thought of that. Yeah, but let's go for it now.
Yeah, but how fitting with it being Homeless Awareness Day. So,
Yeah.
yeah, briefly speaking, I was onboarded with Brock Community Action back in the middle of April to be the shelter director for Rutland. And at the time, we have established one site, that being the adult shelter, which will be on the location of Brock, located in Rutland. And then the second one is going to be a temporary supportive family unit that will hopefully, once the Rutland Housing Trust possibly gets site control over the old Loretta home, which was previously a nursing home, a perfect opportunity for that family supportive unit, as well as expansion of affordable units that will go on the backside. So currently, we did receive the funding necessary to start doing the construction. We have signed off with with Naylor and Breen. They have been nothing but spectacular in how quickly they've responded to the project. So they look to begin work probably around the end of June. So that's some permitting and those things. And the hope is that we have the adult shelter operational late fall. That's the goal. So this also gives me the opportunity to really put together all the protocols and procedures that's going to govern the safety, stability, and fidelity of the program, as well as to get around to all the other shelters and see what they're doing. That way, I'm putting together the most effective and best approach for those that we're going to be serving.
Great. Thanks, Eric.
No, thank you.
We look forward to it. We look forward to, maybe taking a field trip down to Rutland.
I hope that will be the case. Absolutely.
All right.
So thank you for that opportunity, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, Jeff. Show your face.
Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
It's nice to see you. Thank you for being here this afternoon. So, one of the things that we are looking for is looking at the progress that is being made with regard to Act 163 of last year, and we are making some presumptions that VITAR is participating in that, making progress in those areas. And looking at the certification of recovery residences, et cetera. And I see you have some documents that you have shared as well.
Absolutely. Well, I will be brief, and maybe this could be more of a exchange of questions and answers from my perspective. But we spent the summer working with the health department and stakeholders going through the certification process. And I understand that the department has asked for authority of rulemaking to finalize those processes and to codify VITAR as the certifying body for the state. So we support those recommendations and the report that they shared back in January. Just by way of a quick snapshot, thank you again to you, Chair Wood, and your committee for the tremendous support that you've provided to the Recovery Residents movement. This committee's been very active over the last several years, looking at this need and helping us scale it appropriately across the state. I'm incredibly proud. The COVID pandemic really set us back with the closure of a number of providers, but we're slowly making our way back. As we reported through Recovery Partners of Vermont, we've added 40 beds to the system since last year with your funding. And since that time, we have 2 operators that just opened their doors in the last few weeks. First off, Ben's House in Derby, Vermont, serving men. And then Turning Point of Bennington has opened their home in partnership with Shires Housing. And they will be supporting 8 men and have become certified as well. So we're slowly getting back to where we were previously. The final thing that is in your packet of information relates to the study that the Fletcher Group did. You'll remember that the legislation called for a 2-part study from the Fletcher Group. And for those of you that are new to this committee, the Fletcher Group provides technical assistance to rural communities around recovery housing. Much like the CORA program at UVM, they were designated under Senator Leahy to do this important work, and they've been an incredible asset around the country. In Vermont, they did an economic analysis. This is something that they've done around the country. And the ROI that they're presenting is $8.83 for every dollar that we spend. So if you equate that over a 15-year period, it's nearly $610 million in avoided criminal justice, healthcare, and productivity cost. So the investments that you're making now really will have that long-term impact from a financial standpoint. But more importantly, it will save lives and improve the lives of Vermonters through this resource. I know that Candace will talk a little more about what V4 is doing in scaling and the great work that they do. They're a mirror of our other certified homes across the state. I think Don will also be speaking on behalf of Ben's House, the new program that I mentioned in Derby. So I'm excited that they're part of the conversation today.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions for Jeff? And the materials that he just spoke about are on our website.
And there is an updated map of the various locations that are certified across the state.
Do you have any idea about how many residences there are out there that are not certified?
I would say that there's probably 2 or 3. And of all of those, at the current time, they shouldn't be certified. And reasons for that are either they don't accept medically assisted treatment, they may have an absolute 0 tolerance policy, so they're not really doing the exiting that we reported on as part of this bill and self-directed relapse plan, or they're more treatment oriented. A good example of that is Teen Challenge. It's not really a perfect fit. Dismas House was certified for a period of time, but they're, as you know, lean more on, their focus is more on helping people that are exiting incarceration and integrating them into the community. Recovery is a piece of it, but that's not really the focus. So I think for those programs that are operating currently that are prepared to be certified, that we have them all in our continuum. The Springfield Turning Point is one of the programs that came on board after last session, and we're really happy to have them as part of this process.
Thank you. Other questions for Jeff? Okay, thanks, Jeff. We appreciate that.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're gonna hold Kelly for the last. So let's take Candace next.
I do have a copy of our before orientation packet with me in case anybody had questions. Do you mind if I pass that out?
No, that's fine. Be helpful to submit an electronic copy too, if you haven't done that already. You can just, yes, pass it around here.
Hello. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Candace Gale. I'm from Barre, Vermont. I serve as the Director of Community Relations for Vermont Foundation of Recovery. V4 operates 9 certified recovery residences throughout Vermont. Our homes are certified by the Vermont Alliance for Recovery Residences and VTAR, and are part of the growing network supporting individuals in early recovery from substance use disorder. Today, I want to share the impact we are seeing under Act 163, reflect on the statewide data, and offer a closer look at the lived experiences of members in recovery residences. Thanks to this legislator's appropriation of general funds and opiate settlement funds, the FY25 state budget supported the launch of 4 new certified recovery residences in Vermont. These homes brought an additional 40 beds online since July 1st of 2024, expanding access to safe and supportive housing for individuals in recovery. Across all certified recovery residences in Vermont last year, 226 individuals were served. Every member received peer recovery coaching and was connected to a local recovery center. The average length of stay was 6 months. 63% or 142 individuals gained meaningful employment during their stay. And of the 143 members who exited in 2024, at least 70 transitioned to a stable living environment. It is important to note that this exit data is likely underreported. Prior to Act 163, operators had no standard method for tracking where someone went after leaving a home. Even now, many individuals who move in with family or friends are not captured in the data, despite being what we would consider a stable living environment. As we continue implementing Act 163, we look forward to clear definitions and more comprehensive tracking. Recovery is not linear. National research shows it takes an average of 5 attempts to achieve long-term sobriety. The context matters when evaluating outcomes. Every day spent in a recovery residence helps build recovery capital, which offers structure, connection, and the space to rebuild. Between July and December of 2024, there were 40 temporary or permanent removals from certified recovery residences across the state. Of these, 27 were related to relapse and 13 involved threatening or violent behavior. Behind each of these numbers is a coordinated response. At V4, for example, every member creates a safety net plan when they move in. This includes identifying trusted contacts and steps for re-engagement if they cannot continue in the home. We go over the plan during a full day orientation on day 1, and then again after 7 days to ensure understanding. That's the packet that you all have in front of you. That is what we review on day 1 and then 7 days after. Each section is also initialed and signed off by that member who is entering our home. If a member does need to leave, whether due to relapse or safety concerns, we act quickly to ensure they have somewhere safe to go. That may be a V4 emergency bed, a stabilization bed, or a connection to their listed contact. Between July and December, 19 individuals statewide accessed safety net supports following removal. Discharge is not a closed door. Operators remain connected and help individuals find the next step. B4's structured expectations and peer-driven community are designed to support members from day one. This includes house meetings, accountability, drug screening, and personal growth goals. The goal is not just sobriety, it is a long-term independence and stability, and we want members to work those muscles. We are also working with the Fletcher Group to develop more consistent data collection and reporting tools across the Vermont certified recovery residences. Jeff spoke a little bit to this work that we have been doing so far. As we look ahead, we support efforts to codify certification, implementing a fair protective discharge policy. However, we must also address the serious barriers posed by the current landlord-tenant law. Removing a member for relapse or violence is only part of the picture. There are other situations such as repeated theft, refusal to engage, or consistent policy violations that harm the well-being of others in the home. Certified recovery residents operate in shared accountability and community norms. These homes are not traditional rentals. They are voluntary, structured environments where everyone agrees to uphold certain expectations. When a member disengages or disrupts that environment, it impacts the safety and progress of others. Operators need the ability to follow a certified discharge policy without triggering an eviction process that was never designed for the setting. This is not about denying housing. It is about maintaining the integrity of the recovery model. Individuals who are not ready for recovery housing should be supported in accessing other options, not placed in a setting that relies on shared effort and commitment to work. Recovery residences are not shelters or permanent housing. They are specialized, time-limited communities for people actively pursuing personal transformation. While some individuals experiencing homelessness may benefit from recovery housing, it is not the right fit for everyone. And without the ability to uphold expectations, recovery housing cannot be effective. In closing, thank you for your leadership and continued investment. The outcomes are real. People are working, reconnecting with families, and building the foundation for a better life. Without thoughtful policy and ongoing collaboration, we can ensure more Vermonters have access to safe, supportive housing and a path toward long-term recovery.
Thank you, Candace.
Sure.
And thank you. Would you submit that in writing? I mean, digitally also, electronically to Lori? That'd be great. I was also noticing that you had forwarded the annual report for V4. Thank you for that. And it is posted. I just have like in here, it talks about, thank you. In here, it talks about the same study that that Jeff talked about in terms of, what's the name of that group?
Fletcher Group.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But in this report, it cites a 12% ROI as opposed to an 8, or not 12%, $12 ROI. And Jeff commented 883. So I haven't read the report. So I'm just, is there differing sections depending upon what that is, or?
So they do have a dollar amount in the Fletcher Group as well, but it's for all certified recovery residences. For V4 only, it's only to like our program,
Okay, so the 883 was for all certified residences. Okay, I'm seeing Jeff shake his head, and the $12 is for just the V4 group.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That helps explain that. Go ahead, Representative
Thank you
Garofalo.
so much. Again, just glancing at the report, I haven't really read it yet, but I noticed that on the table you have for occupancy over the years and noting that 2024 was 77%. Is that, is 77% meeting the need? Are you not at 100%? Like, is that, I'm just trying to understand, is that an ideal number?
Yeah.
Is there an ideal number?
So I don't know if there's an ideal number. We always, it fluctuates a lot during the year. So there are times when we're at capacity, and then there are times when maybe 2 people will move out of a home. And so that kind of reduces our occupancy rate for that month, which will kind of skew the numbers. We always have a waiting list of about 30 individuals, both men and women, on our list. But it just takes a little bit of time to, exit one person and place a new person in the home. So of course, we're always looking to get that percentage higher. But I don't know if we'll ever really solve that with just the time that we need to make those transitions.
So one of the things, I should have asked Jeff this question as well. So one of the things that was noted in the reports that we received is so one of the decisions that we'll have to make is whether or not we make the temporary exclusion to the landlord tenant law is permanent or not, because it's temporary right now. And one of the concerns that had been raised by members last year was that that people would be unsheltered to homelessness, essentially, that they would, as a result of being asked to leave. And, of course, I remember very well the testimony that you gave, Jeff, that said that there's a plan for each individual and that they are assisted, in whatever way. And I can't remember exactly who said, but somebody's got a transition bed. And I know that was in budget this year as well. So I'm just, I guess, wanting to verify, is that accurate, that nobody was transitioned to homelessness? Nobody ended up in unsheltered homelessness as a result of being asked to leave, either on a temporary or permanent basis?
Correct, that no one was exited into homelessness.
Are you saying yes as well, Jeff?
I am, and I can also validate, since the report from the department in January, just as a reminder, that was from July 1st to December 31st.
Right.
The exits are still reported to me by the homes. They have within 7 to 10 days to notify me. And I would say that the reports are on par number-wise with what we saw in that first 6 months. And to date, no one has been discharged to homelessness. As Candace testified for V4, all of our homes have a process of a self-directed relapse plan where the individual will identify where they will go in the event of a recurrence of their disease. And all of the homes also have made arrangements for a safety net in the event that that plan cannot be implemented. Now, some of the homes have embedded space within their network of operations. Ben's House is a collaborative of Journey to Recovery in Newport, and they were one of the very first to kind of come forward as a recovery center to offer this space. I know V4 has utilized some of their transitional apartments. And the state, with the dollars that you have allocated, have partnered down in Rutland. And I know that V4 and Bennington Turning Point use the home that's providing that stabilization space that's been made available in Rutland.
Thank you. Representative Bishop, then Representative Noyes. And then, okay, go.
Does the landlord tenant exemption that currently exists, is that just applicable for certified recovery residences?
Yes.
And I'm getting 2 nods, okay. It sounds like double confirmation. Do we have any data related to program exits from non-certified?
I'm sorry, we don't. We don't have any oversight of our certification process is voluntary, and we don't have any oversight or really strong connection with those programs that are not certified. I will say to the chair's mention of this language sunsetting, as Candace alluded, we're grateful for what's been provided in terms of some protections to these operators. But we've also discovered that there are so many more reasons beyond return to use and violent and threatening situations that call for the resident not to be in the home because they're impacting everybody else's recovery. And Candace mentioned some examples around theft. We've even had instances of, unfortunately, people being trafficked and people that just aren't participating in services. So if we were to move that language forward more permanently, we would ask that you consider some additional guardrails that the operators would have access to. We've lived within the constraints of landlord-tenant law for the past number of years in the desire to really try to address this issue. But as we move closer under the health department's oversight and funding through Medicaid and just letting you folks know how these programs operate, I think it's arguable that maybe there's another way to do this through a healthcare exemption or some other way, so that we're not doing these carve-outs to landlord-tenant law, but we're just clarifying that those programs that really are a program, not a landlord-tenant relationship, don't have to abide by those regulations. At the same time, we feel like the certification process does address those concerns. And if there are further concerns with the rulemaking that the department has proposed, we could handle that through the certification process as opposed to the landlord-tenant type of relationship.
Thank you. We'll definitely be taking this up next year because we have to, I don't think it would be, it doesn't seem wise to just let the sunset happen, and return to our previous state. How we sort of solve this on a more permanent basis is, up for discussion, and whether it's the landlord tenant law or, when you're referencing, healthcare, there was some discussion about that last year, and it didn't seem desirable at that point in time because that, we'd have to be talking to the Department of Disabilities, Aging and Independent Living around licensure of facilities. And it's as therapeutic community residences. And I mean, I would encourage you all to be, if you're thinking that might be a potential option, because that's determined to be a programmatic residence, and it's not covered by landlord tenant law. So, but there are other things that come with that. So, other strings. I guess I would encourage VDH and you all to be really taking a look at those regulations, because that's the only other option that I see in current Vermont, I guess operating rules that would potentially provide the kind of exemption that you're looking for.
That is helpful feedback. I do know that Senator Douglas very recently reached out to us and is interested in advancing some work in this area. And naturally, we would want some sort of companion legislation from the House. So work and interest is out there leading towards trying to address this issue next session, as you've suggested, Chair. So we look forward to it. This is a good prelude to the conversation. We didn't come in today with any particular proposal or anything, just the update on the exiting and kind of a reiteration of what I've said previously.
Thank you. We had Representative Noyes and then Representative McGill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of what I was thinking about was said here, but just really appreciate your attention to really thinking about when individuals leave the program, where they end up, because as you know, that was a lot of work to get to this point. And really hope that over the summer we can continue to have these conversations to come back to the legislature with a continuation that will work for everybody, because it's important that people have those supports and not exited into homelessness. So I really appreciate the work you're doing and paying attention to that.
Thank you so much. It's very important to us as well.
Thank you. Any other questions for Candace or Jeff at this point? Great. Thank you. Thank you. Dawn. Nice to see you.
Nice seeing you.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. My name is Dawn Tatro. I'm one of the founders of Jenna's Promise and now one of the managing partners of Ben's House, which is a newly certified residential program in Derby, Vermont. I'm here to speak to you today about the Landlord-Tenant Law, Act 163. First of all, I'd like to provide some significant facts that I think sometimes are confusing for those looking at this comparison. Recovery residents have strict requirements, which allows them to become certified and also be governed by VTAR and overseen by NAR, National Alliance for Recovery Residents. NAR is structured by laws, regulations, and are used by national standards. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. It's already been done. A structured living residence consists of accountability that supports recovery for people that come and are serious about changing their lives. Recovery residents are focused on creating safe space where the living area is shared and connections are made. These have been necessary in having success for the people in recovery. If you walk into one of our homes, which is what our people call one of our homes, their home, it's safe, it's supportive, it's a great living environment. We share most all common areas, most share a room. They are fully furnished with all linens, dishes, towels, washer, dryer, cleaning supplies. A list of requirements are there for people to live. They have to do weekly UAs or random. They are required to engage in recovery services. Each house is different, but some of these would be required to engage in IOP services. Having a recovery coach is a huge one, attending meetings, having clinical services. Some of us also engage in workforce development, as you know. Working closely with the community. Most of our residents engaged in community events, and once they are ready to go on their own, we help them find their own apartment, which is usually in the same community they have developed connections with. These are structured programs that have generated great success. If you're comparing to a landlord-tenant environment, there are a few similarities to compare to. Rental houses that thrive on independent living, which usually create isolation, which often leads to failure for people in early recovery. There are no furnishings, dishes, linens, curfews, UAs, along with any recovery supports. If you've ever been in a house that has one person that has relapsed, you can understand what this does to a house. If a person returns to use, they make the rest of the house feel uncertain, unsafe. They bring in cravings and thoughts of drinking, resentment. They're a team getting sober, connected, and have support networks around them. If one strays, it really affects the whole house. And when you have 15 to 17 residents, that is huge. One person can take down many. Relapse is part of the recovery, and we make sure that people have all the supports needed to come back and be successful if they do relapse. We are experts in this field, creating safe living environments for people. Everyone that comes in has a relapse plan. We check it. We make sure they have someone to call if they need, if something happens. You have to understand also that we take probably 60% of the women and men were from corrections. That's a different animal. And sometimes it gets a little tough. But we are changing behaviors. Each person has a relapse bed if needed. Lila has a stabilization bed at her recovery center. We also have put people up in hotel rooms for 3 days till they can come back and test. So their UAs are clean. And give them another relapse, a recovery plan. Something needs to change, and we realize that. Doesn't mean we throw them out. We just change the plan and wrap them in tighter services. We're trying to heal the brain here and allowing certain brain paths to heal and work correctly. That is why medical experts say it takes time to rewire the brain to normal ways of thinking. Please remember, this is a disease of the brain. Many created by years of opiate prescriptions prescribed by doctors. We are experts in this field. Please allow us to have the tools and the support we need to keep everyone safe and able to succeed in this environment. I really appreciate all of you listening and to looking into, I think, a new model for recovery housing. It's a change out there than it was 10, 20 years ago. It really has. It's become a very important and valuable tool to people in recovery.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you.
Questions for Dawn?
Are you gonna let me off easy?
I know. I feel like we shouldn't.
Okay.
Right? Right? No.
I should have one question, 27 pots, fire away.
Okay.
Thank you for taking your talents and your expertise and expanding them to the Northeast Kingdom.
Really excited about that. Right now we have 5 residents and every single person in that residence is working. We have a certified electrician, a craftsman, a contractor worker that's supervising jobs at Ireland. Should be supervising for GW, but a line cook and a mechanic.
Wow.
That's pretty cool to see the success.
Mhm.
And so we're proud of that. And I really believe that Jenna would be proud of what we've given people in recovery. So thank you.
Seems like we do have a question here. Did you have something, Dan?
No, I just,
Oh.
it was nice to hear about the program and kind of where people are working and appreciate your work
Thank you.
at both places. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I think you raised an important point that the recovery homes that we see today are different than what we imagined 10 years ago. And I think that it's important for us sort of at that policy level and statute level to make sure that we stay current with those changes. And, I think being able to sort of try out a concept for a little bit and, gather some data that y'all are doing with the health department is important to helping inform what we should do on a more permanent basis. And even then we should be reevaluating it on a periodic basis to see if it needs changing. So I think that was an important point for us to take note of, because I think it really is different than it was 10 years ago. And sort of what people envisioned from 10 years ago is very different than what we see today. So thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you, Donna.
And you see the statement.
Yeah.
Okay, Kelly, one of these days we're going to have you sitting in the chair at the end of the table.
Thank you for
I know.
having me.
Welcome.
Thank you. For the record, Kelly Doherty, Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Health.
Well, just before we start, Kelly, Dawn, could I just make sure that you send in your notes to Lori? Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So I just want to sort of emphasize the recommendations that we made in our report and also just really emphasize what a key role recovery residences play in the continuum of substance use care in Vermont. It is really a fabulous stepping stone for folks, on their recovery journey when they're in their early stages of recovery. So I can't overemphasize enough how important they are in the continuum of care. So as we noted in our report, we do support or recommend that VTAR remain the certifying body as it is now for recovery residences in Vermont. We've had a great relationship with Jeff and VTAR over the past several years, 5 years plus. So we really want to continue that partnership. And like Jeff said, we request or recommend that the legislature give the department statutory authority to select the certifying body for recovery residences. This will foster continued support for the current certifying body while providing the department with the ability to authorize a new certifying body should that need arise. Like, for example, if the program closed or if there were other issues that necessitated us finding a different certifying body. And we also recommend that the department be given rulemaking authority to establish regulations for the effective operations and programming of certified recovery residences. And we agree that NAR standards are the core with the ability to make Vermont-specific tweaks or additions. Rulemaking is recommended because it will allow tailoring of standards to Vermont, afford stakeholders and the public additional opportunities to engage in the development of regulations and accommodate the anticipated needs for regulatory changes over time to better address the evolving needs of people who utilize recovery residences. Those were our key recommendations from the report, and I will pause there and see if there are any questions.
Thank you. So I guess one of the things, are you saying that through your rulemaking that that the health department would handle the issue of the landlord tenant? I'm just trying to understand what the health department, because it feels like we need to somehow address that, and especially since there's a sunset, so it will revert back to what it was prior, and there wouldn't be an exclusion. So are you saying that we should somehow do that through regulatory means, or?
Not necessarily. I think that we want to wait and see what this next report on the exit data says before we make a recommendation. In that regard.
Okay.
But certainly understand the challenges that Jeff and Candace so eloquently described with respect to the things that they are seeing on the ground. That requires removal of folks from residences, even on a temporary basis.
So I'm understanding you to say that because in reading this, it looked like you were saying to expand it to some other, if we were to make it permanent, that there would be other provisions that would be included somehow.
Potentially.
Okay. And then what about your thoughts, or I guess I'm just going to ask about what do you think about, because I know we did have some not really detailed conversations, but we did have some conversations last year around, whether, these residences are, quote unquote programs, and whether they would be considered, whether they could be considered under a licensure capacity, and whether, whether or not Dale would be interested in, saying if they met a certain level of national certification, that would suffice it to be, or to, I'm not finding the phrase, but that would essentially substitute for the for the licensing standards. I'm trying to figure out, I think that there's been sort of a balance about thinking about recovery residences as, programs per se, versus supported living. And I think that, as we were just talking about, the recovery residence of today is much different than what, people knew from, 10 or 15 years ago. And, I guess looking down the road, is it really the landlord tenant law we should be looking at, or is it really, some sort of other more formal certification as a healthcare program that would be licensed by Dale, but that, perhaps, there could be some way to recognize the certification process as meeting the standards for Dale, or at least the majority of them. I don't want to put residences through like a double set of processes, so to me. But it also, I think we should probably have the discussion, not necessarily right now, but as we think about this over the course of the next few months and looking at legislation next year, we should be thinking about and having maybe some of those internal conversations with Dale about, whether or not it makes sense to think about recovery residences as therapeutic community residences. When you look at sort of the overall definition of TCR, it's very comparable and aligned with sort of the mission of recovery residences. But they have their whole set of, it's a whole different process. And so, recognizing what, we'd potentially be walking into, but I think we should, or y'all should, because that's beyond our scope here, but you all should be thinking about that in the off session to help inform what it is that we end up passing next year.
Right. And
Yeah.
I need to familiarize myself better with the Dale standards, but I know it almost feels like recovery residences fall into this in-between zone. And I know that other states have made changes to allow recovery residences to operate outside of landlord tenant. And I know that Jeff is very well versed in this with what other states have done. So I don't know if he can speak to that now, but yeah, I think we need to figure out what's the appropriate kind of designation, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, as a therapeutic community residence, it wouldn't be covered by landlord tenant law.
Right.
So it's kind of like we need to evaluate really what is the best place going forward. Is it just the exemption from landlord tenant law? Is it going back, down the TCR route? And there's pluses and minuses to both, I mean, to be honest. And TCRs have a more likelihood of maybe being able to, I'm not going to say, it almost sounds funny to say this in current scenario of things, but being eligible for Medicaid funds in the future when we think about, how we're going to sustain these programs in the future. Some sort of licensure would probably be necessary. And TCRs are recognized as healthcare programs in the state already. And most of them are funded by Medicaid in some form or fashion. So just something for you all to be thinking about and working together on, and talking with the folks at Licensing and Protection at Dale, and seeing whether it makes any sense or not. It may not, but I'm sure that there's pros and cons to both approaches. And we appreciate the data that you provided and look forward to the update, as we get more data and the recommendations that you're making here. Are there other people have other questions for Kelly at this point in time? Thank you for the report. I hope you're glad that we are reading your reports.
Sometimes you don't know.
I know. Well, that's why we're striving to be the committee that makes sure that the administration understands we read their reports. Thank you very much. And we look forward to continuing this conversation next session for sure.
Thank you.
Alrighty. And feel free to reach out to, one of our members here or, another member of the body if you're looking to make some recommendations legislatively.
Okay.
I'm saying that to everybody sitting around and on the screen. Okay,
Hey, thank you for having me.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's gonna wrap this up for today. Jeff, did you have, it looked like you came back online or, showed your face again. I was just wondering if you had something else you wanted to say before we wrap this up.
Just a quick thank you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All righty. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. And thanks everyone else, for being here as well today. Appreciate it. Okay, so just tomorrow, we are taking up, public transit and access to services. We have the general manager of Green Mountain Transit coming in and, we don't know the name of the witness yet, but okay, we do have somebody from the Howard Center. This is to follow up on H30, which is an act relating to seclusion and restraint for children and youth in the custody of DCF. So that, again, this is sort of laying the groundwork for next year. This is a bill we will work on next year because I think that it's, I think we all heard and feel that it's probably pretty important to start to tackle some of these issues. Okay. And then later this week, we have a joint hearing with the Committee on Commerce. So we're making the rounds with joint hearings this year. We together will be hearing about enforcement activities on vape sales.
You said face.
Yeah,
that's right.
Control. Let's just let it.
you can only use high quality cocoa in your breakfast. Right, no red. Yeah, regular brownies, that's all I'm saying.